Alrighty, good evening, everyone. It is time for me to kick off my pre-show spiel. My name is Peter Liffers. I am your host for tonight's Berkshire Museum Family Trivia Night. Tonight's theme is, of course, witches and nocturnal animals. We have 10 great questions, 5 on the Salem Witch Trials and other witchy facts, as well as 5 questions on the various animals that go bump in the night. Now, as always, please do not use the internet to look up your answers. I cannot see what you are doing. However, I will know because I have been practicing my witchcraft in preparation for this trivia. So I'll know. I won't know. As always, due to the limitations of the technology I have, I cannot keep track of individual scores, only the score as a group. So if you would like to keep track of how your team specifically does, please make sure to grab a paper and a pen or pencil to keep track of your score at home. And I think that's it. I think that's my usual intro. So yeah, we're gonna get started in just a minute. We're gonna give everyone just another minute or two to hop on in. In the meantime, we have the museum itself open for reservation. And if you look for, you can go to our website, berkshiremuseum.org, to find out more information there. And if any of you have kids who are looking for a little something to do after school, we have a virtual after school program led by me, as well as one of our other educators. Split into 2 groups, grades 1 to 2 and a 3 to 6 section, covering various different topics from robotics to things that make a mess in your kitchen. So if you are interested in any of our after school offerings, please check out our website as well. Alrighty, guys, I think we have a good group here, so I am going to kick off a minute early. Don't tell anyone that I did this for you guys. All right. Welcome to Berkshire Museum Trivia Night. Tonight's theme, all on witches and nocturnal animals. And we are beginning with the witches. Now, witch trials had occurred throughout Europe, and they had sort of a resurgence in the mid 1600s and late 1600s. So in the 1650s, you see a lot of witch trials happening in Europe. You see a second wave happening in the 1680s, and then into the 1690s here as it is brought over into the New World as well. Now, there were a lot of different reasons people said that their neighbor was a witch. It might be that they had a specter come into their home, which looked like their neighbor, and it terrorized them in their sleep. It might be that their neighbor came to visit, and you found that after your neighbor left, all of your milk had curdled into cheese. So there were various claims made against people as to why they were a witch. And my question for you is, which of these was not a sign that someone might be a witch? Is it A, wearing fashionable clothing, B, having a birthmark, like this one here, C, being old and quarrelsome, D, dancing, or E, speaking French? So which one of these was not a sign that someone was a witch? Every other one was brought up in a courtroom as evidence of someone's various states of witchiness. But one of these was not. So what was not presented as evidence that someone was a witch? Now, if you were in Massachusetts in this time, depending on where you were in the colony, it would affect whether or not you could be brought up for witchcraft trials. Those in the former Plymouth colony, the courts there barred what is known as spectral evidence. So saying that you saw a specter of someone coming in your house and haunting you. Whereas the rest of the state did not. So those who were living in the Plymouth area could not be generally brought up for witch trials because most of the evidence relied on the spectral evidence. All right, we're going to call our voting there. You guys were pretty split on wearing fashionable clothing not being considered a sign of a witch, or speaking French as not being a sign of a witch. It might shock you to know that dancing was never brought up as a point that someone might be a witch. Wearing fashionable clothing, being ostentatious for the Puritans, it was basically tantamount to the devil. These are people who banned Christmas and cakes. So wearing fashionable clothing was seen as sort of this extravagance, and that was bad. Having a birthmark such as this or any other strange mark, clearly where a demon or devil might have touched you. Being old and quarrelsome was just naturally the state of any witch. And speaking French, well, you just had a touch of the strange about you if you were French. These are the English, after all, and all the French are witches. It's just a fact of 1690 in English colonies. If you're French, you're a witch. All right. So dancing, if you found yourself out there and traveling back in time, feel free to dance. No one will accuse you of being a witch if you are dancing. Well, maybe depending on the type of dance. Some modern dances might get you in trouble. Alrighty, the next question is a simple true and false. Now, we all know that the Salem Witch Trials had several members, a little over a dozen, who were found guilty of witchcraft itself. And my question was, how did they punish those witches? So is it this statement true or false? In Salem, the accused witches were burned at the stake. True or false? What was the punishment for witchcraft in the Salem Witch Trials? So was it true or false? Then in Salem, the witches were burned at the stake. Sorry, I need a little glass of water, and I don't have one near me, so got myself a little tongue-tied. So yes, true or false? In Salem, the accused witches were burned at the stake. And we'll give you guys another few seconds on those answers. All right. You got 5 more seconds to get your answers in before we wrap up this section. In 3, 2, 1. It was pretty split, but false took the lead on that answer, and you are correct. Hanging was the preferred execution for witches for those found guilty in the Salem Witch Trials. However, there was an additional one, a man by the name of Giles Corey, who was crushed to death under large stones. However, he was never found guilty for witchcraft. The crushing by stones was a part of his trial. They were basically putting more and more weight on him to force a confession out of him. However, he knew that if he refused to confess to being a witch, that his sons and daughters would still be able to inherit his goods, whereas if he said he was a witch, he would survive, but all of his lands would be taken from him. Alrighty. There's just a lot of great images from the Salem Witch Trials. People love to do paintings and portraits, and this one might be my favorite because it's got everything. It's got accusations, it's got drama, it has people leaping out of the audience, it has people fainting from the scandal happening, and it's just a great look. Now, during the Salem Witch Trials, which actually took place primarily in what is today Danvers, which was known as Little Salem at the time, how many people were accused of witchcraft? So this is not how many people were found guilty. This is not how many people, were arrested. This is how many people were accused of witchcraft during what is known today as the Salem Witch Trials. Was it around 40 people, around 70 people, around 130 people, or around 200 people? And I want you guys to also keep your mind, bring yourself back in time. This is the 1690s. The English settlers first arrived in Plymouth in 1620, in Boston in 1630. So this is a mere 60, 70 years after, the first arrival of the English into the area. So just give you a sense of scale about populations that you might see. All righty, we're going to give you guys few more seconds on those answers. Get it in. This one is a little bit of a tricky one. Alrighty, last chance to get your answer in 3, 2, 1. All right, we're gonna wrap up our guesses there. You guys were pretty split all over the map there. Around 130 was the most common answer. However, for the individual who voted for around 200, you are correct. It is just over 200 individuals were accused of witchcraft throughout the entire period. And keep in mind, some of these accusations of witchcraft included someone walking down the street, pointing their hands to someone across the street and saying, he's a witch. I know it. He terrorized my daughter in the night. And then that person fleeing and then hiding in their family estate down in Plymouth, because Plymouth was not arresting people for witchcraft. That is the true story of one of the, I believe, sons or grandsons of John Alden, who arrived on the Mayflower. His grandson was accused of being a witch, and he ran away to his family's place in Plymouth because he wouldn't get arrested. All right. That is the end of our Salem section. Now we're just going to go into some general witchiness. Up next, we're leaving Salem and we're traveling to Russia, home of this particular witch. Here we see the Baba Yaga, and she's riding one of her various forms of travel. Here she is riding a large mortar and pestle through the woods, looking for children and young maidens to steal and take back to her house in order to eat them, or do other various witchy things. And so here she is, traveling by one of her means of travel. However, her home itself is also capable of moving around. Oh no, I have someone who's not seeing any pictures. Can you guys see anything? Or is that just a trouble on one end? So if you guys are seeing pictures, please let me know. Or if you're not seeing pictures, please let me know. I have no idea what you guys are seeing, only what I see. All right. Abigail, you might need to pop out and pop back in. Sometimes restarting the app can get those pictures back in for you. All righty. The Baba Yaga's home is also capable of traveling around. So how does this legendary Russian witch's house move around? Does it move around on giant chicken legs? Does it move around on giant cat legs? Does it have giant human legs? Or does it have giant lizard legs? How does the Baba Yaga's house travel around? When she's not traveling by mortar and pestle or possibly large cauldron. She is often seen traveling by those means as well. All right. And just a few more seconds on those answers, guys. We'll give you another 10 seconds or so. So we have the Baba Yaga, legendary Russian witch, who is famous for snatching up, again, young maidens and children are her primary target. As with a lot of witch myths, children are pretty common for that, yeah, as you can see with Grimm's fairy tales as well. All right. 3 more seconds. 3, 2, 1. We're ending our polling there. Oop. And we're going to share our results. We have at 50% giant chicken legs coming out in the lead for the top vote. And you guys are 100% correct. Baba Yaga's hut walks through the forest up on giant chicken legs. And It's a little tough to see here. I forget her name, and I have it written down, but it's very Russian and I cannot remember it. But this young maiden has just tricked the Baba Yaga in order to escape and grabbed one of her lanterns to make her way through the forest. But you can see the Baba Yaga's house with its chicken feet just behind it. So the Baba Yaga's house tears around through the forest on its chicken feet. All right, so we have the Baba Yaga. And now we're going to go to a more modern witch. In the Roald Dahl classic, The Witches, and there's also a new movie, well, a remake coming out, and there's, of course, the classic from the 90s. We have a conclave of witches who they're all bald, they have no toes, they have terrible skin and large noses, which they all hide behind various masks and gloves and wigs in order to hide their witchy stature. But the Grand High Witch, the queen of all witches of the whole world, has concocted a scheme to turn children into what animal? In the classic Roald Dahl book, The Witches, the Grand High Witch sought to turn children into, is it moles? Is it birds? Is it mice? Or is it bats? Which animal did the Grand High Witch seek to turn the children of the world into? Moles, birds, mice, or bats? Alrighty, just a few more seconds on your guesses. All right, 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're going to wrap up our voting there. Share results. It seems a number of you guys are very familiar with Roald Dahl's The Witches and have mice is the clear winner on the votes here, and you guys are 100% correct. The Grand High Witch sought to turn all the children into mice. Although her plans are thwarted by one of those micey children. Alrighty. That ends the witchy section of the night. That wasn't a good witch laugh. I can do better. That's a better witch laugh. It's still not perfect. I'll work on it. But we are now moving on to the creatures of the night. Much better Dracula voice. And we are going to be talking about some nocturnal animals. And also, if you ever want to see really strange drawings of animals, look up 1800s animal illustrations. They are bizarre, and I love them, like my little friends here in the middle. So here we have a collection of animals. We have an owis, tarsiers, and tamarins. These are nocturnal primates. They all come out at night. However, one of them is the only carnivorous primate. So which one is the one that only eats meat? Is it tarsiers? Is it tamarins? Is it the owis? Or is it man? I only had 3, so I tossed in man at the end. Which one of these is the only carnivorous primate? And I will say that I am stretching a little bit here. Tamarins, only some tamarins are nocturnal. Others are diurnal or crepuscular, focusing on more evening and day. And some of them are perfectly fine with the daytime. But there are some tamarins which are nighttime. And I will say that despite the carnivorous nature of this primate, he is eating insects. They are an insectivore. It is a subcategory of carnivore that eats bugs. But one of these is a primarily insectivorous primate. I'm going to give you a couple more seconds before we wrap up. We're going to end there. It was a race between the owis and the tarsier, which is correct. Tamarins, they love a good piece of fruit. Man is, of course, not nocturnal at all and is there a little bit as a joke. We do eat meat, but we are in no way solely carnivorous. Tarsiers and owis. The owis, a relative of the lemur, while it does have a large bug-heavy diet, it also includes a lot of fruits and veggies in with that. So the owis are an omnivore. However, they are specially adapted fingers that allow them to reach inside plants and pull out bugs, because bugs are still a very important part of their diet. It is tarsiers, which have 71% of the vote, as are carnivorous nighttime primate. And I'll go back in case you're wondering what the tarsiers are. They're the ones in the middle with the huge bug eyes. Those are our little carnivore friends right there in the middle. They are native to the southern Philippines, and those are our carnivorous friends. And that drawing of them is terrifying. All right, up next, we are talking about bats, specifically vampire bats. Vampire bats, a large number of them are found in South America. There's 3 main species of vampire bats. And here we see an illustration of the various types of noses and ears one finds on all bat species. But the vampire bat I want to focus on is the hairy-legged vampire bat. Now, like all vampire bats, this does primarily feed on blood of animals. However, what hairy-legged vampire bats primarily feed on which animal? Do they feed on large herbivores, so cows, deers, things like that? Do they suck the blood of birds? Do they primarily focus on sort of young animals, looking for things that are more recently born, that aren't quick to move? Or are they a carrion feeder, and do they look for fresh kills in order to lap the blood off of a recently deceased animal? So what is the target of the hairy-legged vampire bat? Is it searching for large herbivores like deer? I'm blanking on animals that exist. Deer, cows, large animals like that. Birds, looking for that bird blood. Young animals that have recently been born and do not move quickly. Or carrion, is it looking for fresh kills and lapping the blood off of that? Now, regardless of their primary food source, they are not picky blood eaters, so they have a favorite food source. However, if that is not available, they will seek alternatives. So this is, what would they largely go for first? And there are, in addition, hairy-legged vampire bats, fully nocturnal, unlike the insectivorous bats who like to hunt with a little bit of light. I keep rambling. I have so many bat facts. All right, we're going to end our polling there because I was talking way too much about bats. Large herbivores got the main vote, and that would be correct if this was any other species of vampire bat. All other vampire bats prefer large herbivores. Hairy-legged vampire bats, though, birds. Hairy-legged vampire bats prefer bird blood. They have a gut flora that is more specifically designed to digest the blood of birds. And as an older ancestor, an older branch of vampire bats, the hairy-legged vampire bat seems to indicate that these blood-sucking bats began as bird blood drinkers before moving on to drinking mammalian blood. I learned some fun facts about bats today. Alrighty, we are moving from a bat that drinks the blood of birds to my favorite birds, owls. Once again, Victorian drawings. They are great. All the animals look confused and surprised. Here we have a lovely Victorian drawing of an owl. Fun facts about owls: their eyes are not eyeballs. They are big, giant tubes, and they cannot move. So that is why the owl's head is able to rotate as much as it can, because it cannot move its eyeballs to track play, so it has to move its entire head. It can move its head 270 degrees and has a special blood well in its brain where it will pool blood to use in its brain when it cuts off the circulation by turning its head. Now, when you have a group of owls together, what are they called? Is a group of owls called an academy of owls, a jury of owls, a parliament of owls, or a bureau of owls? So these incredibly silent, incredibly deadly hunters are called what when they're gathered together? So they have specially shaped wings, which make them incredibly silent flyers. They have four toes, two in the front, two in the back, although they have a side, one of their back toes can sort of move up to the side to help them grip prey. What are some other owl facts I have? Oh, their ears at different heights. So if you look at an owl skull, one ear is higher than the other. This helps them more accurately pinpoint their prey when they are searching at night. All right, a few more seconds on your answers. All right, and we'll wrap it up there. And a Parliament of Owls comes out ahead at 57% of the vote. And you guys are 100% correct. A Parliament of Owls is the official name for a group of owls. I am uncertain if there is a prime minister of all owls, but I like to think there is. Alrighty. Now, if any of you have been lucky enough, as I was one day, to walk around and take a walk in an early morning and discover a very, very pretty spider web covered in morning dew, there is a very specific species of nocturnal spider that makes these large circular webs that are sort of the iconic web shape. A number of spiders hunt in different ways. You have like the wolf spider, which basically just chases down prey and pounces on it. You have some that throw their web on other their prey. You have trapdoor spiders, which sort of build a little hidey spot and catch prey as it goes by. But these web builders that build these large webs, which oftentimes they eat before the morning in order to get all of the nutrients they used building that silk web back in their body, are known as what? So what is the name of the family of spiders that builds these large, sort of classic web shapes? Is it the huntsman? Is it black widow spiders? Are they orb weavers? Or are they cobweb spiders? What is the family of spiders that builds these very, very large classic spider webs? And you may not always see them because oftentimes the spider will eat the web itself before the next day. So every night, spider comes out, builds a giant web, and then eats it and goes back into hiding for the day. Alrighty. We're going to give you a few more seconds on those answers. 3, 2, 1. And we're going to wrap it up there. It was almost a split vote between the orb weaver, and the cobweb spider. Those of you who guessed cobweb spider, I'm sorry, I tossed that one in there as a little bit of a distraction. Cobweb spiders do build webs, but they build really tangled, weird little webs. So when you see the spider webs that aren't very pretty, aren't very decorative, they're just sort of a jumble of webs that seemed like the spider was going anywhere to try to catch anything. Those are made usually by cobweb spiders. The large, very pretty, orb-like, some might say, webs, those are the domain of the orb weaver spiders. There's actually a couple different families of spider, but pretty much all of them carry the term orb weaver somewhere in them. Those are the spiders that create those very large, very pretty spider webs. I say the webs are pretty. If you put a spider near me, I will jump up 6 feet, scream my head off, and run away. I do not like spiders. The webs are pretty, though, unless I walk into them and then I, again, scream and run away. Alrighty. For our final nocturnal animal, I, of course, have to turn to the humble trash panda. These North American native garbage rumblers are known for prying open trash cans, creating lots of noise, and have made a home for themselves in urban centers. Out of all the species around us, they have perhaps adapted one of the best, like pigeons, to being in a human environment. Raccoons do very well around people because they love to eat our trash. Now, they were also a prize game animal because their pelts can be quite beautiful. And so they were brought into Europe, particularly into Germany. And now there's several German cities that have huge raccoon problems because they've been introduced there, and they are now an invasive species, and they're all over the place in those cities. And the Germans have named raccoons the Waschbär. What? Waschbär. I'm not German speaking that well. Waschbär in Germany. And my question for you guys is, what does Waschbär mean? What does the German name for raccoon mean? Does it mean washing bear? Does it mean ringtail? Does it mean white bandit? Or does it mean masked weasel? If you had to take a wild guess as to what Waschbär means, what do you think the Germans named the raccoon? Is it washing bear? Is it ringtail? Is it white bandit? Or is it masked weasel? Just a few more seconds on those guesses, guys. We'll give you guys another 10 seconds to answer. Now, another fact about raccoons, people often think that they have an opposable thumb. It is not quite a thumb. It's sort of a pseudo thumb. It doesn't have the full range of motion an opposable thumb does, but they do have that side digit that does allow them to open things that other animals might not be able to open. All right, we're going to wrap up our polling there. Taking the lead on that one was Washing Bear. And you guys are 100% correct. They were named the Washing Bear because raccoons tend to have a behavior where they will take their food, and if there is water nearby, dunk it in the water before they eat. Now, this is more common with raccoons in captivity. However, raccoons in the wild, especially if they're near water, will take whatever they're about to eat, sink it in water first, and eat it. Some people like to think that raccoons enjoy washing their food. However, some scientists believe this is actually more to do with their hands, and that raccoons, their hands are so sensitive, but there's greater sensitivity when their hands are wet. So they get a better feel for what's in their hands before they eat it. So some suspect that raccoons like to sink their food in water because it gives them just a little bit more sensory information before they eat it. So it's not necessarily washing their food. Alrighty, guys, that was our final question of the night. I hope you guys had a great time. I really enjoyed hanging out with you guys. We will be back in 2 weeks, which I believe is October 20th. And the sign up is on our website. The theme for next week's will continue. Our October theme is classic movie monsters. So Dracula, the Wolfman, the Mummy, and the classic Paramount movie monsters, as well as the creatures of the deep. So those really funky looking fish and crabs and things you see down in the Marianas Trench. We're going to be talking all about them. All right, my friends, thank you all for joining me, and have a great night. And tune in 2 weeks if you want to hear me do more terrible witch voices.